Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm Dr. Dylan Miller, and today we're diving into RFK Jr., vaccines, big pharma, vaccine injuries, and holistic treatment options that can greatly improve quality of life. I would like to start by saying it's a privilege to be allowed to work with anyone in their health journey, and that journey should be treated as the great honor it is. People do not deserve to be treated like cattle, dollar signs, or fearfully strong-armed into any health decision they make. The name of the game is everyone should be treated as family because we only get one body and one chance to take care of it properly. Now, this is an exciting time as the old sick care paradigm is shifting and people are starting to demand real health care instead of blindly trusting a broken medical system disguising itself under the name healthcare. I've always had a unique perspective on anything that a multi-trillion-dollar business says and assumed what I was being sold was false until proven otherwise. With that being said, even as a youth I questioned vaccines. Out of simple logic, I couldn't figure out how bypassing all of our natural avenues of immunity by injecting a disease directly into our bodies made any sense at all. Not only are you not breathing it in, swallowing it, rubbing it on your skin to get exposure, but everyone was getting injected with multiple diseases at the same time. When am I ever going to get exposed to measles, mumps, and rubella all at the same time in real life? Another question I always raised in my head was on tetanus. I mean, that's a scary one. However, logically, if I stepped on an infected nail and tetanus was already in my system, why would I want to strain my immune system even more with injecting a tetanus vaccine, which is supposedly preventative? Injecting that into your own body after you've already been exposed by the wound itself. It just didn't make sense to me. Now, we aren't here to discuss this. I am simply voicing questions I've had as an uneducated teenager. The more I learned, the more questions I had. I started to see that there was big-time money in selling fear to people, and keeping people sick and scared makes us easier to control. This starts to make a lot more sense when we add in the legacy media to the conversation. If we all just stop for a second and look away from the chaos of today and look at the constant chaos of yesterday and the day before that and the year before that, you quickly see that there was never anything to actually fear and everything was always perfectly fine and the world continues right on turning. If it's not a natural disaster coming, then it's a war or a new disease or riots, etc. Just remember back to swine flu, bird flu, and food illness outbreaks. It's always something. 99% of the news is to keep us in a fearful state of chaos. Now, let's add in big insurance into the mix. Every single one of you listening right now have either experienced this yourself or someone who is near and dear to you has gone through the gauntlet of their medical provider saying they need to take this prescription, have this procedure, or do this next step with the patient's best interest at heart, only to have the insurance company jump in and dictate care and say that this is not what the patient needs or they're going to get. Does this sound like something that should raise a red flag to anyone? We have another trillion-dollar industry stepping in and manipulating us once again. In 2008, the government started talking about taking over healthcare via Obamacare, as we all know it. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why the government wanted that responsibility or even cared what people chose to do with their own health. It didn't make any sense to me. However, once again, I go to my default mode of not trusting a trillion-dollar industry and assume they were up to no good until proven otherwise. Around this time, I started my journey towards chiropractic school, and it became apparent these giant trillion-dollar industries were now teamed up. The government, big pharma, health insurance, and now even the media are now in a loop of scratching each other's backs and laughing all the way to the bank, while the media, they help drive that fear wagon. This isn't a conspiracy. Just hear me out, then we'll get to the real meat and potatoes of this conversation. I'm trying to lay some firm groundwork so you can truly start to think outside the box and question the norms, which we've all been sold our entire lives. None of this is to tell you what to think. Instead, it's simply to question what we've been told and sold as a fact for so many years. Now, here's a book I'll try to link to in the description that everyone should read. It's called Vaccines, Are They Really Safe and Effective by Neil Z. Miller. This book simply questions vaccines. What if 90% or more of diseases we all fear were eradicated by clean running water? What if vaccines weren't introduced until decades after natural immunity was already taking care of itself? This book is full of great graphs and well-referenced material that simply gives you some solid information on the flip side of the coin from what we've all always been sold our entire lives. Now let's jump ahead about 15 years to current times. I've spent the better part of my 38 years immersed in natural health and trying to study and figure out what is truth and how to best serve humanity. As I went through seminars after seminar and read books, the good Lord Almighty didn't create our bodies to be one big accident, as the entire trillion-dollar industry would have us believe. We're told you need a pill for everything, then another pill to cover that up, and then cover those symptoms up that pill caused. We are told vaccines are safe and heavy metals are a good thing for your body. And by the legacy media in their system, it's starting to get questioned and they don't like it. As I learned from the most brilliant natural health practitioners in the world, even more of this web started to unfold itself. Many of these chiropractors, chiropractic neurologists, DEOs, acupuncturists, and functional and alternative medicine nerds would mention how the medical field has changed so much in the last 40 years. Now, when I say these are nerds, I mean these are the type of people that read textbooks for fun. They study, then they study even more, because that's just how they're wired. A few of my mentors, in particular, Doctors Richard Belly and Evan Mladenov, mentioned how the medical physiology books they studied when they were younger were full of natural health information, vitamins, and nutrient information. However, over 40 years later, the new medical literature students are taught have had all their natural health information removed. Big Pharma has literally completely bought out the education system and replaced even basic health information with only medication. The medical practitioners are now even taught aren't even taught basic health concepts. Instead, they are taught to never question anything, and medicine is the only answer for the one giant train wreck of an accident we call the human body. They are taught that vitamins are dangerous and patients need to be strong-armed into doing what's good for them. They will happily give 10 medications to one person and tell them, hey, you really need to be careful not to take too much vitamin D because that could be dangerous. The point here is not to talk shit on medical providers. It is simply to address and question a much larger picture that has happened and is happening. There are plenty of medical providers that provide great care and do a wonderful job. However, this is not what the medical schools are teaching them. With that being said, I can now say with confidence that the FDA is nothing more than a weapon for Big Pharma. The FDA is a government agency that is supposed to care about our food and oversee drugs. However, the past 2 to 3 years, I have witnessed the FDA suddenly crack down regulations to shut down well-known homeopathic companies. They approve untested vaccines in the name of science. They allow our foods to be poisoned with so many additives it can no longer be called food. Did you know monosodium glutamate, aka MSG, is a chemical flavor enhancer and a known neurotoxin? MSG was required by law to be labeled on food packaging in the early 90s. However, All the FDA did was allow MSG to be renamed 20 plus other names. So it can now be now it can't even be recognized by your average consumer. A few names that this goes by that you can look and check for on your labels is yeast extract, autolyzed yeast, yeast food, calcium glutamate, glutamic acid, hydrolyzed corn, ingredients listed as hydrolyzed protein, fortified, ultra pasteurized, fermented, or enzyme modified, magnesium glutamate, monoammonium glutamate, monopotassium glutamate, natural flavors. That's a big sneaky term that blankets MSG. Pectin, sodium caseinate, soy isolate, soy sauce, textured protein, vegetable extract. Does this start to raise more red flags for anyone? It should. And this is just a drop in the bucket of what's really going on. All of a sudden, Big Pharma notices this shift in health happening and people starting to question things. So what have they done in the past 2 to 3 years? They've started buying out nutrition and supplement companies left and right. This is scary because can these companies really be trusted not to start poisoning the supplements so many people have grown to trust and love? A quick example of this is Pure Encapsulation and Douglas Laboratories. If my research is correct, these companies were all part of a deal made by Nestle to buy them out. Nestle has ties to BlackRock, if that tells you anything. Thorne is another trusted nutrition company that I've used a lot in the past. They were recently bought out by an investment group, which, if you follow it up the chain, has ties to EssilorLuxottica. Yes, the big glasses company. This corporate giant owns so many companies, it would blow your mind. As an example, one tiny company they own is called FXG International. Their brands include Chaps, Easton, Nine West, Foster Grant, Dockers, Ironman, Rawlings, Body Glove, Disney, and Marvel, just to name a few. The point of this is, why wouldn't we start to question what is going on here? What is wrong with demanding answers? Change is on the horizon, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. needs to get voted into office so we can be allowed to start asking these questions, very relevant questions for we the people. The fact that there is resistance to a slogan of "Make America Healthy Again" should tell you everything you need to know. 2 Democrats and 5 Republicans mainly stand in the way between RFK Jr. and his position as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, Tom Tillis, Cory Booker, and Catherine Cortez Masto. RFK Jr. isn't a danger to anyone besides the corrupt system we've been talking about. The things he is speaking about and questioning are real, and we need him in this position of power for the sake of health, humanity, and most importantly, our future generations. With all this being said, what if you or someone you care about has taken a vaccine and had a not so uncommon vaccine injury? There is hope. The body wants to be well and can heal itself. Autism will be a subject for another conversation, and yes, autistic disorder can greatly improve and enjoy a much better quality of life. Never forget, the body wants to be well and wants to heal itself. Another couple of my mentors, Dr. Carrie McCord and Dr. Walter Schmidt, did a presentation on helping the nervous system reset due to the abrasive nature of vaccines on the immune system. 75 to 80% of your immune system lives in the gut, and under a microscope it has been shown to injure the epithelial tissue of the intestinal lining. One researcher noted the tissue looked more like steel wool instead of soft velvet after vaccination. Also, did you know your gut is your second brain? What are the mental effects of injuring your gut? Our brain and nervous system oftentimes has a memory to these injuries. How many of you have been injured and then had trouble forgetting about it? We all deal with injuries. However, what if we could bring your body's attention back to that injury and then help it reset and move forward past that time? As with anything, you need to find it in order to fix it. And by using electromagnetic signature test kits, we can safely expose the body to these potentially harmful substances and help the nervous system reset. These are simple vials, and some people call them homeopathic test kit type of thing. But these test kits are essentially like tuning the body into a radio station, bringing that wavelength to the front of the nervous system's attention. If we remember, everything is made of atoms. Atoms are made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And 90% of the bulk of that atom is electrons, which means everything is energy and has a frequency or charge. Think about the wall in your home. Even that wall is 90% energy. With that being said, everything has a frequency, which means we can use these test kits to naturally help reset the nervous system from vaccine injuries and many other conditions. If there is a vaccine that has injured your immune system, gut, or any other organ in your body, we can not only help treat and reset the body while this is on the front of the nervous system's attention, we can also help decipher what nutrients or remedies are potentially helpful to detoxify the body and help it heal. This takes a lot of guesswork out of this by allowing your nervous system to show us what it wants through its neurologic response. This is just the tip of the healthcare iceberg. And I would like to thank you all for tuning in. Together, we can raise the healthcare bar, raise expectations for you and your family's health, as well as what is expected from all healthcare providers.